Welcome back to my channel, everybody. It's Old Bob's Garage. Today I'm going to be talking about the annual servicing of the 1951 Harley. Um, I've already ran it this spring. Everything's working fine, but I'm going to go through lubrication, oil changes, check the timing, just the normal things you would do, following the owner's manual for it. And again, everything was working good, but with Harleys, I just want to check to make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be. So along the way, I'll show you some of the things I look out for when I'm doing it. But before I get into it, I want to talk to you about some problems I was having near the last couple of years, and especially near the end of last year. I started having problems with the battery discharging. So it sits for about 4 or 5 days, turn the key on, no lights. So it's just got a simple system, 6-volt battery. It's got a generator. I've been topping up with demineralized water. I have to add it a little bit more frequently. Didn't think too much of it. But I decided to pull it out and charge it. So while I was taking it out and filling it, I found some surprises. So I want to share that with you as well. So enjoy this. Hopefully you learned something along the way. And at least I can show you some of the things I've learned as well. So when they took the battery out, what I found is, so this is a pretty standard battery you can find almost anywhere. I guess the thing I liked about it is it looked pretty close to the original design. And it worked pretty good for the first 5 or so years, maybe 4 years. But what I started to see, I used to notice the wetness in the top. But what I started to see was, was taking a bit more water when I was filling up. Well, then I just pulled it out to take a closer look, and I noticed that this whole seam all the way around the battery is let go. So I pulled the battery out, and I added demineralized water into it, and you could just see it just leaking out the side. So I picked up a new battery, and I got one from Motor City Customs in Oshawa area. So I didn't get any no rebates or anything like this, so I'm not doing anything for promotion, but got great service. Always get great service, been going there for years. Bill suggested not to use one of these batteries. Instead, he suggested the Harley Davidson original equipment, and it's been working fine ever since, and much better construction as well. So keep an eye out for that. This is probably a pretty generic, low-cost battery. Like I said, it was doing well, but really surprised about the leakage of the battery acid. So I got a bit of cleanup to do. I'm gonna have to probably now pull out the oil tank fender and the tray that the battery sits on, and clean up some of the acid that's accumulated. I've already washed it once, but I'm going to wash it again, degrease it, and I'm also going to put in, to do some fixes to the paint as well. So again, I hope you enjoy this. We'll just go through step by step some of the things I look at. Don't know exactly how I would do it, front to back, back to front, top to bottom, I don't know, but we'll slowly go through it. You can probably see all this information in other videos, and you may not have specific things that are interest to you, but maybe you might, who knows. Hope you have some fun watching it. So starting at the front with just general lubrication greasing, you can see there's a Zerk fitting here, and there's also one inside the hub. So I won't go into a whole lot of details here, but what I have done in the past is put too much grease in here, expecting to see something go out. So that was a mistake. Just a couple shots, just like the manual says, because there's a little seal in place, and then just pushed it loose out of the way. So when I was taking apart the brake to do some repair work in here, or checks, I should say, of the brakes, I found the seal displaced. So, and there's also a pin for the shoes in here near the top. You lubricate that, and I don't do that yearly, just check it every now and then. So moving up to the forks, you also are to lubricate the slides, the pins for the clutch and for the brake. Now this is 51's not supposed to have a hand clutch, it's supposed to have a foot clutch. I got the parts for that, just haven't got the right tank for a tank shift. And you also are to lubricate the cable as well. So I just disconnect it, and when I'm doing clutch adjustments, I'll work the cable back and forth just to work oil down as well. Now, one of the things I always check for as well when I'm going through is also check for fittings. And I just discovered when I was doing this
you can see the pin for the clutch lever. Let's see if I can get this in focus. I just can't get in focus. Anyhow, if you take a look at that, you'll notice that the little bolt here just happened to realize that it was almost ready to fall off. Again, this is the second time. So I'll have to take care of that, get that all tightened down, get that all snugged up. You do the same thing over on this side. Same thing, disconnect the cable, and I put a bit of lubrication down for the front brake, and same thing, a little bit of lubricant, just light oil for these. I haven't done it for the throttle in a while. I pulled the covers off for the throttle, put it down. I've got a 1949 set of handlebars with internal throttle and internal spark advance. Just haven't got them for the repairs. I'll show you those in another episode, but they'll be going on. And then moving down to the fork. Now I had this all adjusted and lubricated, so I won't be doing it this time. I had to put a new pin right here. When I got the bike, this was broken off. This is for the damper. So when I was doing all this, I took it apart, cleaned the bearings, and set everything up. I'll probably check for end play in the fork when I'm doing this, but that'll be it. But I won't be taking that apart and redoing that, checking that grease. Now moving down to the other grease fittings here. We've got a few Zerk fittings. You can see down, I can't see on that side. I can probably see it in there, so right. One thing about this camera is it doesn't focus very well. So a Zerk fitting right there, that's for the brake pedal. And I'll put a little bit of light oil here. And there's another fitting for this shaft that runs from this side to the brake lever on the other side for the rear drum brake. Up here, there's another Zerk fitting for the seat post, which moves up and down because there is no rear suspension in this bike. Lubrication as well. So people, you might be wondering what this is for. My petcock leaks a little bit, so I just, as a practice, once I flood out a few times, I just divert it to this can, open the drain in the bottom of the carburetor, make sure if there's any leakage, it goes here and not in the motor, and then eventually to the crankcase. So I'll take apart the external fuel filter here, and I'll clean that out. Now, being that this is a 57 case, I'll show this, I think, but here is a little screen. So when I got this bike, it had a screen there, but it was broke up real bad. There's pieces missing, so it really wasn't doing much of anything. So I got a new screen and put that in, so that's really handy. So I check that often. And then for the oil change, I'll also, there's a drain down here. So once the bike's warm, drain that out and replace that, put new fresh oil in for this year. The Panheads use a fairly thick weight. It's roughly, I think, about a 60 weight oil. I actually use a combination of 50 and 70 to get it to where I need. On the back, you have, you can just see it right here, one grease fitting right there. Give it a couple shots again there. By the way, I also check oil pressures. Air pressures. Really actually important because not having any rear suspension, you are to have just 12 psi in the tires. If you have a bit of a passenger or carrying a passenger, 14 in the back, but not a whole lot. So I'll also check all bolts are on the way. Again, vibration. Check for anything that might be loose over while I'm going through all this, but not a whole lot. But again, has a tendency to work things loose. On this side, the mousetrap, there is a fitting. Whereabouts is that now? Grease fitting right there on the mousetrap. There it is. And there's another one down on the foot shift. And then after that, just a little bit of light oil on a few little parts. And that's basically it. That covers off most of the things I do for servicing for it. Every now and then I do put a little bit of oil into the kickstand. When I got it, it's completely dry.
that may be the right thing to do, but it was also, you know, a little bit worn out. I'm still in a little bit of a problem with it not really returning. That'll be a project for another day. And I forgot a little bit of lubrication on the other half of the brake. Now, the one thing that I also do is take the chain off. There's lots of videos on this, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail. Actually, it worked out pretty well. There's the master. Now, let's see if I can turn the the light on for this. Maybe not. There's the master link right there. So I'll back off on the rear wheel adjustment, pull the master link off, and it's always got to point away. The opening has got to be away from the direction of travel. Take that off. I'll pull the chain out. I'll clean it all. And then actually the manual says that you warm grease, put the clean tray into the grease. That helps work it into all the rollers and the bearings. I haven't done that. I just cleaned it and I soak it in oil, put it back away, which kicks off a fair bit of grease when you're coming off, but there's also a specific way of heating that grease so it doesn't wind up separating the grease as well. It's a very slow. I think the manual talks about a bit of a warming type tray for it. So that's basically it. Like you said, I don't think I'm missing too many things. I do generally check a few other bolts there as well. These bolts here on top of the heads, check those. They used to work the way loose. Hasn't been a problem lately. And then after that, I'll go into the timing. So this bike, again, because I've got a later handlebars for it, which don't have the spark advance. It's got basically just a stop. So what I'll do is I'll just check that timing. I spent a fair bit of time on it before and got it set up, but and it's called a wasted spark system. So there's one lobe. I time it to the front cylinder, and it sends spark to both cylinders at the same time. And of course, the other one, the wasted sparks in the exhaust stroke, so it does nothing. But that's the way it's set. You can double check by also going to the rear cylinder and doing it. But you really can't do much other than sort of splitting the air. So I'll check that. I'll check the points. I'll probably just show in the video of me doing that. Just what it's set for, set the gap, readjust that, and I'll probably show a little bit on checking the valve clearance. Now, these bikes originally came with hydraulic tappets, which was located at the very top of the push rod. Now, this has all been converted to a mechanical system, which I think is pretty common. The hydraulics bleed down. You don't get a whole lot of lift of the valve. They don't start as well. So I'll show that. Lots of videos on that as well. I might just show a single one. Not get into a whole lot of detail, but I'll give you a little bit more information on that as well. Okay, so I'll go through it. I'll show a few little videos of some information or some of the specific steps, but that's basically what I go through when I start doing the servicing work. Oh, and I forgot one other thing. I have a lot of problems with this brake switch. So this is similar to the original manufacturer, but the original one would have mounted on a little bracket right over by this, by the brake shaft. This aftermarket one sticks every now and then, so I'll take that apart and I'll just the boot off, I should say, wipe it clean, put a little bit of lube on. And I forgot the transmission. I'll check the oil in it. Now, as I said, I put a new aftermarket snout on it. Call them pig snouts. But I put a new one on because my original one, which was actually from a 47, a knucklehead, it had a crack in the boss for the kickstart. And I had it welded, but it kept on doing it, the timing off a couple times in the spring. It was kicking too much, and it broke the repair that I did, so I just decided to get this aftermarket heavy-duty one, and this one's been working fine ever since. Nice and solid, no play. And that was the other thing, even though I had
brand new shaft in the old housing and new bushings because it wasn't square enough. There was still wobble, so this one's working really well. So I checked the lubrication on it. It does drip a little bit, like a lot of places in Harleys do, but it's been pretty good ever since ever since I've cleaned it all out and put this new end in. There's not much dripping coming from that. There is dripping coming from the oil filter housing. Snugged down some of the fittings a little bit. I think that's got it a little bit better, but again, I'll go through that if there's something that I find along the way.
So one other thing I forgot to mention about when checking the chain, I talked about squaring up the tire with respect to the front wheel. So it's all properly aligned, make sure the chain's. I also got to check to make sure it's centered on the sprocket. If it's a little angled one way or the other, you'll see the sprocket sort of pushing to one side. So again, checked out everything here after I cleaned this. Hopefully you can see that all right. After I cleaned and everything looks good there. Right centered in the sprocket. So let's see if we can get this knot off now. I took off the air filter just to make sure I got a proper size screwdriver. Hope you can see that, not a lot of light there. A proper size screwdriver to get this screen, oil filter or oil pump screen. So I think I said it was 57 or 8 when they first had these. It was actually, looks like it was 55 that they first had these screens in. So I'm just gonna try to get this loose. Oh, there we go. And this will give us a pretty good indication of condition of the motor. So again, I replaced the screen when I got the bike because the old one was a little bit rough shape. And looks like somebody had also tried to solder it as well. I think it was to hold the screen on. It's very simple. It's got a little check valve as well to hold pressure in the head. This is right there is the ball, or spring for the ball, seat for the check valve. Just carefully set that aside. Should have put myself a paper towel somewhere. And in there is the screen. So I'm just going to go grab a little probe or magnet, see if I can get that out. Went to grab this magnetic tool, and I got the little thing I got to fix now because there's a little bit of corrosion inside and the battery's dead, so I can't get it. But this works really well. So just put this over top. You hear that click? It's right down here. And there's the whole filter assembly right there, or screen assembly. And that's it. Now, unfortunately, the screen is actually down in the side there. So it'll take a little bit more effort to get that out. Okay, I figured I'd rig up the camera on top of a tripod so you can see this a little bit. Doesn't take much. I'll make sure everything's clean. Put the claw in there. And there's the screen. So that's what all about that. So it looks pretty good. Oops, sorry, didn't even have that in there. So it looks pretty good. Screen's clean, no particles. Oh, I better release that because I'm squeezing it too hard. But you can see no particles on the outside. Maybe a teeny little bit on the screen, but pretty good. What I keep an eye out for is chips of metal, specifically flecks of aluminum, small pieces. I found in the past a little fleck of black paint. So what I've done here now is I've gotten that little dent would bug me. So I just got an of a drill bit, put it to where that little dent was. Put a little teeny of a crush in the screen. I just cleaned it up, by the way, with a little bit of brake clean. Put that in there, and I just very carefully can actually see it through the screen. Just push that screen back. So one of those things that wouldn't matter, but those things drive me nuts. So that's the screen, all cleaned off. Got the little dent out now. I don't know if you can even see where it was. right there. But it's all around again. So now it's a matter of putting the parts back together. The screen goes inside this seat, like that. And that's what holds the check valve. Already cleaned this all out, flushed it out with some brake clean, flushed it out with brake clean as well. Again, everything looked fine there. There's not much to that part. And they got the bowl check to go back in, and I'm good to go. So put them just reverse order, nothing special here. It is a little bit tricky holding everything together there. Now it's stopped, so that means, there we go. And then I put the ball valve back in, just still attached to the magnet. Drop that there. So again, that's a check valve that holds the oil up in the system so that if it had hydraulic valves, it would remain pressurized. Gaskets all look good. Guess you can't see all this. Let's give them a little bit white little copper washer to go inside there. These are the flecks of paint I used to find, but that's from the outside. That's from the cap itself. And put that back in. Make sure everything's square. And that's it. I won't bother showing anything on the oil filter. The disassembler of that and cleaning it. Pretty straightforward. Just a regular housing. A little woven type material, like a gauze type material. Not gauze, but a woven mesh, like a fibrous type mesh that goes in here. There's really nothing special to see that, so I won't bother showing you that. And that really takes care of all the lubrication. No surprises this time, so that's good. Snug it back up. Don't put a whole lot of torque on there. It's all aluminum, of course, so don't need to snap that. Besides, there's a lot of other leaks that we don't really need to worry too much about that little one there. That's the end of the lubrication for the first part of the video. The next one I'll be doing on the ignition system, but nothing really surprising. Everything was good. Oil condition was really good. Not a lot of blow-by that darkened the oil. It was pretty light. I change it once a year. Probably should change it more towards the end, but I tend to like to do it at the beginning so I remember I get to catch everything. So next video will be about the timing for the bike. So pretty straightforward stuff for that as well, but I'll take you through that a few steps, show you how I set it up for the timing for it and checking the points. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for tuning into the channel.